and then you get a flat ass. And then like I said, you get knee pain, lower back pain, and then you wonder why you're getting these things. And then you go to physical therapy and they start working on your knees, and it doesn't do shit for you because the problem isn't in your knees, it's in your glutes. Good morning. You know, some days you're in a rush and you got a bunch of shit planned in the morning, earlier than expected, and you still got to get it in and get it done. So when I have days like this, I try to focus on some of the highest return items. The easiest way to think about that is do the hard stuff. You know, do the things that you either avoid doing or that are incredibly taxing for you. So what I'm gonna do today is, I had a quick leg day, which I don't like to rush because legs are my favorite, but I only have about an hour right now to square everything away. So I warmed up real fast. I got the adductions, you know, the good girls bringing the knees to the inside to loosen up my hips. I did a little bit of bodyweight lunging, and now I'm gonna jump right into hamstrings. Today's gonna be mainly a hamstring, glute, and calf focus. So I'm gonna focus on higher return items. I'm gonna start with some RDLs. I'm gonna up my weight a little bit today, go a little bit heavier with that. I'll probably do some hip thrust movements, and then maybe some like lunging, and some barbell lunging, maybe like some sort of posterior chain exercise, maybe go on the GHD over there and hit the rest of my hamstrings and glute tie in there. And then hit some calves, maybe hamstring curls, call it a day. But I'm gonna try to cook through this workout, and then we can kind of square back away once I get back on the treadmill. But I'm gonna move pretty quick today, so just follow along and you know, keep up. Wait. So I kind of smoked through that leg day, and I got it done in literally like in an hour, almost exactly. Honestly, wasn't that bad. Kind of felt good, especially getting in here a little bit earlier. The normal crowd that I'm used to isn't here, so there was less conversation, less stick points during the workout of people coming up and just like saying hi, asking me questions, but felt pretty good. So didn't have much commentary. Actually, I had no commentary during that workout. What I've had focused on is I like to split leg days up into 2 days, relatively speaking. So the first one's generally like a quad focus, and sometimes calves. However, I didn't do calves last time because I've been slowing down a little bit. When you look at the body overall, like you try to preserve this like aesthetic balance. And if certain body parts get too big, they make other body parts look smaller, even though they're not. So my calves have gotten a lot bigger in the past, I would say 6 months. And if they get too big, it's gonna make my quads and my glutes look smaller. So when I'm posing, so I kind of scale back on that. I'm only doing calves once a week now instead of twice. And I'm just hitting them hard. I think the big element of that has been like that flexion exercise and tib flexor that I use, has added a lot of profile to it. And also when I added in squatting, because I started doing that about 4 months ago, and I didn't squat for the longest time. I just kind of built up to it. Anyway, kind of smoked through that leg day. So I started off with doing some adductions, which I didn't film any footage of, and then some lunges, body weight. I always like to do that because I feel like those two movements in themselves help really loosen my hip complex. I urge you to do it too, because most people, like I was mentioning, have really tight hips, and seldom do they actually mobilize their hip bones independently, like movement like this, because they're sitting a lot, right? And they don't have that separation that takes place where one knee comes higher than the other. That's why stairs are generally difficult for people too, because they lack hip and ankle mobility, so they get stressed in their knees and lower back. So I like to do the adductions. The good girls bring the knees to the inside first, and then some bodyweight lunges. That'll help really loosen up my whole hips. So I started off with that, and then I graduated over towards RDLs. And you've seen me do them in various different ways. I've done them on a sissy squat machine, which was like a few videos back. I did them also with heel wedges today. I did them just with the barbell. I wanted to get a quick workout and I didn't want to have too much setup. So I just jumped right into that and did a few sets there, loosen up my hamstrings. From there, I went straight into the hip thrusting movements because today was primarily a glute focus day. I kind of cut myself off when I was saying, went off into a tangent. I like to split my leg days up into 2 days, quad calf, glute hamstring. And today was more of like a glute hamstring day. So I did add a little bit of calves towards the end. So I did a little bit of RDLs. I did the hip thrust. I went a little bit heavier with that today. As you see in that clip, I actually use a pad. And essentially what that pad is used for is to push my hip bone all the way against the platform and to take out some space. Because when you push off, sometimes there's a little bit of slack in that belt, even if you tighten it down all the way, and you get like an inch or two off of that platform, and it creates a suspension in the lower back. So the pad actually helps flatten it down a little bit more. It also has a little profile of comfort, because that belt can sometimes dig into your hips. So that definitely helps out, especially when you're going a little bit heavier. Like I did like 5 plates per side today, which I don't normally go heavy, but I really wanted to use some of that food I've been eating the past few days here. And felt pretty good. So I hit that hip thrust, did a few sets there. Again, big thing to keep in mind with that, like I was mentioning in the other video, like that's gonna really help with pelvic floor development. We're talking boners, we're talking lower back health, you know, we're talking knee health even. Whenever you have a disparity in your hips, because your glutes don't work, which means when your hips don't function properly, because your glutes aren't working properly, your body will compensate and try to add stress in other parts of the body, like your knees and your lower back. So it's to your advantage to do that, especially because most people sit for a large portion of the day. It could be you. And if you're sitting for a large portion of the day, something will happen called glute amnesia, where essentially, since the glutes are in a stretched position and you're sitting on them for so long, it's like you're stretching it and then you're compressing that nerve all day long. And what happens is you lose your glutes function over time. It starts to atrophy, and then you get a flat ass. And then you're, like I said, you get knee pain, lower back pain, and then you wonder why you're getting these things. And then you go to physical therapy and they start working on your knees, and it doesn't do shit for you, because the problem isn't in your knees, it's in your glutes. So understanding that can save you a lot of headache in the future. So that machine, do not stay away from it. That machine is fucking fantastic. And I would argue that it's even more important for men to do than women, just given the nature of their employment, generally speaking. You know, most of the time men are sitting at desk jobs, and they avoid doing a lot of glute exercises, which can significantly benefit your overall health and well-being. So don't count that one out. Definitely add that one in. Start light, focus on the squeeze. I'm driving my hips like through that bench, into that pad, making sure my feet are planted, thinking about my heels driving into the platform and like through the platform. And I'm trying to squeeze the butt together. Pinch it off. I like to think about it like closing the door, you know, open from the glutes and then close and squeeze them as you're driving up through that platform. And then up next, I did some reverse lunging with a barbell. So I did it off of a platform. Actually, no, I did seated hamstrings first. I did seated hamstring curls immediately after that. And I used a little pad, like a little gray pad, to elevate my butt up, because that can significantly increase your range of motion. And on top of that, it allows you to like leverage a little bit more underneath the seat. Like I can get my heels further underneath the seat when my hip sits higher. It's not dipped into that pocket. Creates a much better angle, in my opinion. So give that a shot. If you have like a little pad, put it underneath your butt, elevate your hips, get a big squeeze. I prefer the seated hamstring over the lying one. I think the lying one, depending on the angle of it, can cause some tension in your lower back. A lot of people get this rocking motion where they drive their hips back, they try to bring their butt to their heels instead of their heels to their butt by cheating and compensating. So I generally don't like that. I think the feeling is lackluster and there's not a really good squeeze at the top of the range of motion. I think seated is much, much better. I feel like it's a better isolated squeeze. So when you're doing any type of hamstring curling motions, try to get a seated one. Or if you have a kneeling one at the gym, where like you put one knee in it and you're curling one leg at a time, that's also good. That's good for overall knee health. It helps suspend the leg and create tension over it, which can really help that knee health. However, the seated one is definitely my go-to for hamstring development, because you're focusing on the squeeze. Same thing with your biceps. Like your biceps, you're not throwing around weights, right? You're trying to flex the biceps, otherwise they don't grow. Same thing with your hamstrings. A lot of people just try to throw the weight around without getting a significant squeeze in their hamstrings and holding that and squeezing it like it owes you some fucking money. So that is a little pro tip for you. Go for the seated hamstring curl. So I did a few sets of that. Again, not going super heavy with it. I was just trying to squeeze it till my hamstrings felt like they were gonna fucking pop. And that is where you get that development. I only did like probably 3 sets of that and my shit was rocked. And obviously I'm not lacking hamstrings if you could take my advice on anything. So I did that. And then I went over to doing barbell reverse lunges off the platform. Get a little bit of elevation there. That's more primarily a glute-based exercise. I'm getting a slight hinge there, which means I'm leaning forward just a little bit. Not too much, I don't want it in my lower back, but I'm leaning forward just a little bit. And what that allows me to do is get more of a hinge and stretch to my glutes. And then when I'm at the bottom of that range, I'm driving my foot through the platform, okay? I'm not by any means just trying to extend my leg like a traditional lunge. I'm trying to drive through my glutes there. So if you're feeling too much tension develop inside your quads, get a little bit more of a hinge and focus on driving through the heels, okay? The heels of your feet. And focus on the glutes, right? I like to try to think about my knee and my ankle staying within alignment, and I'm trying to drive that whole lever of my whole upper leg, the femur, like where my whole upper thigh is. I'm thinking about driving that down because that's what's gonna help. Think about like a kickback motion you see the girls doing all the time, where you're driving your leg backwards. You're trying to do that, but going down vertically through the floor. And that's what's gonna really engage those glutes. So I did a few sets of that. I stayed pretty light with that. I could probably throw about 245s per side when doing that movement. But again, I was feeling a little bit unstable towards the end of my workout because I pushed a little bit more weight there. So I stayed conservative, controlled, and just did about like 10-ish reps per side with a 25. So that could be a great one too. I also have a pad towards the bottom so I don't bash my fucking knee into the ground, because that can definitely happen sometimes when you're fatigued or you're losing balance. So take your time. And if you're having trouble balancing, just do body weight, you know? You don't need to do anything. Or you can grab one of those like long, like wooden dowel pins, almost like those wooden sticks, those balance or mobility sticks, and use that. It's got like you got no weight, but it'll still position you like as if you have a barbell over your back. And when you put the barbell over the back, when you're doing any type of reverse lunging, it loads the spine. And when the spine gets loaded and you lean forward, it separates it from the hips. And that's where you get that glute stretch, right? That hinge. So I like to do it with the barbell and not the lunges when I'm doing reverse lunges like that off of a platform. When I'm doing like a split squat like I did the other day, another video, I'll use a dumbbell for that because I'm trying to sink into a pocket. So, and then I finished up with some calves. So I did 2 movements. I did the tib flexors. That's where I'm pointing my toes up towards the ceiling, you know, and I'm trying to flex them towards my knees. And that one's gonna really add a lot of girth and development towards the front and outside of your calves, right? And most people miss that. And that can actually help with your calf tightness, right? Like one of the leading causes of knee pain too is also your calves get really, really tight and your ankles are immobile because people wear these like really tight shoes that smash their feet and they don't get a lot of ankle mobility, which means like if this was your leg and this is your foot, right? They don't get a lot of this movement coming all the way up. So their calves get tight. They actually get this like pushing movement to their calves because they get tight and they get locked. So whenever you're sitting, watch your feet. If your feet have a propensity to push out like that and your toes flex away from you, it's because your calves are really tight. It's pretty interesting actually. That's called the orgasm reflex. I don't want to get into bioenergetics. It's a long conversation. But that could also be psychologically influenced. It's like an excitatory or a stress state, right? Where your body's like, think about like an orgasm response. Your toes extend out, right? You flex. The body gets tight and tense. And that is an indication of stress or release or trauma or excitation. And if you're sitting and you don't really have anything going on in your environment that's stressing you out, and you're getting a large amount of excitation, that means your body's kicking out stress hormones. And that ain't good. You need to get that fixed. Anyway, not getting off into a long tangent there. That's for another day. Anyway, I did a little bit of tib flexion exercises. If you don't have that machine, there's one called like ATG, hip flexor, or no, tib flexor machine. You can look it up on Amazon. It shouldn't be that expensive. because those machines are pretty rare inside of gyms. I'd recommend you get one because I think it could do extraordinary benefits for your overall knee and ankle health and even lower back health, because your feet are the foundation of your body, and if your ankles aren't stable, well then guess what? You're not going to be stable. Think about all your body weight is rested upon your two little feet, and you have like your foot right here, and then you have like this will be like, let's say this is your foot, and then you have your tibia that goes right on top of it, right? The lower leg. And it's just this little bone on top of this platform, and it can become very unstable. So all your body weight is concentrated to these little circles that sit on top of your feet, right? And it's about a 4x multiplier in each tibia of your weight. So times your weight by 4, and that's the amount of pressure per square inch that's developed across that ankle joint. And if it's unstable, no fucking shit, your knees hurt. No shit, your lower back hurts, right? Imagine a skyscraper if the foundation was unstable, right? You get the Leaning Tower of Pisa on them or some shit, right? You're going to be feeling all sorts of unstable. Your knees are going to be rocking, and it ain't going to feel good, friend. So that tib flexor can significantly benefit you long-term when it comes to this overall stability of your ankles, your knee health, your lower back health, okay? So get one of those. That's a fantastic ad, and you can carry that around with you. Take it to the gym. Just add some plates on it and some clips, and you're good to go. And then lastly, I did a standing calf raise. The difference between a seated and a standing calf raise is a standing calf raise works more something called your gastroc, right? Your gastrocnemius. And that's going to be the one that looks like a W shape in the back of the calf, right? It adds more profile away from your calf, like out, right? Like depth, we'll say. The seated calf raise adds more width. It works something called the soleus muscle, right? So I like to do the standing because my calves have gotten pretty wide. They actually sit outside of my joint, which means if you look at my knees and my ankles, my calves bow pretty wide. They've grown significantly over the years because of the exercise profile I choose and how hard I squeeze them when I train, and also some other secondary exercise selections. So if you're trying to grow your calves, if you want to get more of that W shape to it, you want to do more of the standing calf raises and really focus on that top end flex. And a little pro tip with calves is you got to focus on squeezing. Don't do this bouncing shit, right? It's not going to develop your calves if you're bouncing all over the place. Again, stability and squeeze, right? So push through the big toe. Don't rotate to the outside of your ankles. Push through that big toe. Get a massive squeeze inside that calf. And then from there, it'll grow. You want to be able to feel, even on the way down, don't just release it. Slowly let go of the squeeze, right? Don't just drop. Slowly let go of that squeeze. And when you do that, you're going to actually feel your calf burn like a sumbitch. And that will make it grow. People say, oh, my calves don't grow. It's because you don't fucking train them hard enough, right? You need to flex them. They're very endurant muscles. So doing this bouncing motion isn't going to do much. It's actually just a very destructive movement that'll cause all sorts of residual damage to the joint and the Achilles tendon, because you're not even moving fluidly. You're just kind of bouncing all around. So don't do that. Flex it, squeeze it like it owes you some money, okay? And that will make your calves grow, I promise. Just squeeze them real hard. And that finished up my leg day, so I'm feeling pretty good. Now I just got my 20 minutes of cardio in here. I weighed myself yesterday. I'm sitting around 220 now. Gained a little bit of weight, but I feel great, you know? Remember to always have a positive relationship with your body. You're gonna go through peaks and valleys where you gain weight, lose weight, but you can't look at yourself and think you look like shit, right? You can have a high standard, right? But don't have a high expectation. Those two things are very different, right? The standard is saying you have a certain standard of living. An expectation is saying I need to get there next month, right? You gotta be realistic with that timeline. Because if you skew your relationship to time, it's gonna demotivate you a lot, right? It'd be like if you're starting a business and next month you're like, I'm not extremely profitable. Well, motherfucker, you haven't even been in the game that long enough, you know what I'm saying? How can you say that? It's kind of irrational when you think about it. It's kind of silly. So don't do that with your physique. Don't do that with your body's development. Instead, focus on what you can do, hitting your KPIs, right? Hitting all the things that you know are necessary each and every day, and that's where your focus lies. You know, there's something called lead and lag metrics, right? Are you measuring something that takes time and then getting upset that you're not seeing progress? Like, for instance, it's going to take time to see results. So if you try to measure your progress on a daily basis, that's a lag measurement. Like, it's going to take some time to see progress. You can't measure that. But what you can measure is a lead metric. More so on each and every day. Did you drink your water? Did you take your supplements? Did you do your cardio? Did you do your workouts, right? Did you eat your food? If you could check all those boxes on a daily basis, you are going to see significant progress over time, because your attention now defaults to the activities that compound instead of the long-term result, right? And when you take your goal away from the long-term result and you focus on the day-to-day task, you focus on the process, not the progress, that's when the progress flies by. And the easiest example I can think of is if you stare at a fucking clock, it never moves, right? If I stare at this treadmill, watching the seconds go by while I'm doing my cardio, it feels like forever. But if I'm filming, I'm talking to you, I'm already at 19 minutes, right? That's extraordinary. Time flies. It's all relative, right? So you got to change your relationship with it. So if you want to see good progress, you need to change your relationship to time. Focus on the process, not the progress. Hit your targets, hit those KPIs every single day. Focus on those lead metrics. Did I get my food in? Did I get my water in? Did I get my workouts? Did I get my cardio? And then use that as positive momentum to know that you're doing all the things necessary to see change. And be patient. Have a high standard, but have a low expectation. That's the key to seeing change. And consistency compounds over time. Simplicity scales. Focus on the feeling, not the finish. All right, that's going to be it for me today, friends. I'm finishing up the cardio here. I got 5 seconds left. So I want to thank you for watching. If you made it to the end, make sure you hit the like button down below. Leave me some comments. Let me know what it is that you want to see more of, you know, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Again, I'm making that commitment to those daily uploads. So if there's anything else that you want to see in particular, you let me know. But that's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.